Certainly, officer.
Can you tell me about the package in the lounge?
The lounge? A package?
Oui, it is quite hard to miss.
Oh, how silly of me. I must have had my head in the clouds this morning. I'm sorry, I can't help you further.
Besides the obvious, was there anything unusual about this morning?
Besides the terrible rain? No. I woke, began my duties with Mademoiselle. I had already laid out a clean dress. I helped her into it, and prepared her for the day before getting started on tidying her room as neat as a pin.
And the bracelet was still there when you left the room for breakfast.
I am sure of it. I had it down before Mademoiselle Angeline.
You don't by any chance happen to be missing an initialed handkerchief?
Why, yes, officer. I misplaced it after wiping a stain from Mademoiselle Angeline's sleeve at breakfast. You are a great detective.
You are not the first to say. Had she not noticed it herself? I imagine Madame would not allow even the smallest imperfection.
It baffles me how she couldn't have. It was only luck that I spotted it before Madame, and a good thing I did.
Does Madame van der Bosch have a habit of making such quick assumptions?
Madame is under a great deal of strain. It can't have been easy for her to lose her husband, raising Mademoiselle alone. She can be quick to anger.
And this morning, it sounds as though it was such an occasion.
It's not the first time I have had to stand and watch such treatment. I hate to see it. As I said, Madame hasn't had the easiest time.
You said it was not the first time Madame van der Bosch has lost her temper with Fleurette.
Madame's scolding of Fleurette this morning was the worst I have seen her temper. I wish she could see that Fleurette is just trying to do her best.
Could there have been another reason for such a reaction?
Madame was not happy Fleurette was late. All through breakfast, Madame was watching her with a piercing eye. But she's still learning the way.
Merci, mademoiselle. Your assistance has been invaluable.
Mademoiselle Elizabeth was reluctant to acknowledge a parcel that caused young Fleurette to be so late. Could there be something behind her avoidance of the subject? Is there a reason I must establish what it is? Ooh, I know what it is. Alright. So let's go with the note from Luke and the bench carving, because Luke and Elizabeth.
The pieces of the puzzle are finally coming together.
Carving acts as a subtle and private reminder for them both. Elizabeth and Luke are courting, and then let's link that to
I
the
should
gold
not be
band.
surprised by my own skills of deduction.
Perhaps their relationship is more serious than I first deduced. I wonder what Madame would say. And Luke are betrothed, which would explain the formal suit.
Another success. I never doubted myself.
I find the thought of such a plan cloaked in secrecy rather romantic, but their secrecy continues to perturb me. Mademoiselle Elizabeth was planning to elope with her beloved Luke, but why would she hide such a joyous occasion? I recall her saying Madame van den Bosch does not look fondly on staff relationships, but I cannot help but think there is something else. I mean, they could have stolen the bracelet to pay for it.
Certainly, officer.
Seemed rather excited earlier at the mention of Romeo and
How
Juliet.
could I not be? I may not enjoy his other works, but how can one not be blown away by a story of two so deeply in love that they will risk everything just to be together?
Especially being able to draw similarities between Verona's star-crossed lovers to yourself and your dearest.
But I hadn't told.
Mademoiselle, I am an officer of the law. It is my duty to uncover the truth.
Please, you cannot say anything to Madame. She is against staff relationships of any kind. In her eyes, a relationship between staff is nothing more than a distraction.
But he means so much more to you.
Oh, officer, I have found my soulmate. At first, it was nothing more than pleasantries around the grounds. But that quickly changed. I know it's not proper for a young lady to pursue a gentleman. But once I knew his feelings reciprocated my own, why shouldn't I have followed my heart?
Love transcends professional and societal rules.
The mere thought of him was enough to make me blush. But I knew that Madame would never give her blessing. If we wanted to continue, we would have to do so in secret. The summer evenings here are just so beautiful. I often find myself walking around the grounds after my daily duties are complete. And it was one such evening that Luke was waiting for me at the gazebo. He looked ever so handsome. And the poem he had prepared, he had barely started reading and I was already a blubbering mess. Standing there beneath the warm glow of the falling sun, he asked for my hand, and I gave him my heart with no hesitation. Oh, I'm sorry, officer. I've been chattering on for so long. You have much more pressing matters than to listen to me rambling aimlessly.
One should never apologize for such a charming and bewitching story of love. But you are correct. While the culprit still eludes us, my work is not yet complete.
Love Mademoiselle Elizabeth and Luke shares obvious, and yet she remains respectful of Madame's ruling. No matter the ridiculous nature of it, I cannot see her defying her code and stealing the bracelet.
Merci, mademoiselle. Your assistance has been invaluable.
Okay, well, I got a link in both of these to do. Okay, so Elizabeth's morning, slightly earlier than Angeline. And Angeline removed a soot stain. The fallen
Things
soot
are
in
beginning
there.
to become...
She must use the cleaning rag to reach into the chimney, keeping her hand soot-free. Reached into the chimney. Inspect the chimney in Angeline's bedroom. Which leads me to believe that she hid the bracelet up the chimney. So Cassandra previously mistreated Florette. And Cassandra watched Florette after she returned. And Elizabeth denied knowing of parcel.
Order and method.
I mean, they would have made sense. Anyway, previously did that. Florette, well, Florette claims innocence.
I must act
No.
on thought and fact. This will not get me any closer. Come, my little Grace. Is there something?
Yeah, there's something.
I must take a different approach if I am to... Order and method. That...
Shut up, Poirot.
I must act on thought and fact.
I mean, it's got to be one of these three. Once again, I'm going to base it on that it has to be something that doesn't have anything else in between it. Mm, I mean, I really don't know. Oh, maybe these two? Sandra previously mistreated Florette. And she accused
see
her.
the
No,
logic
come
in this.
on. That seems like such an obvious one. These two.
I should not be
Okay.
surprised by my own skills.
Yeah. As she was constantly busy and under the watchful eye of Madame, Fleurette lacked an opportunity to take the bracelet. Why would Madame accuse her? And Fleurette had no opportunity. And she claims innocence.
Is there
No,
something
really?
I
Was
must act
previously
on
mistreated.
thought and
No,
fact.
fuck you, Poirot. I can almost guarantee you, because like there's been a couple of these where I basically connected two things, and it's like, no, they don't connect, and then I connect another two things, and it gives me a deduction that the first two things would have fucking
Another success.
could have also brought, would Madame seize the opportunity in an attempt to improve and continue to hide her financial woes? And Fleurette was scapegoated. All right. But we now need to go. Well, I guess we'll talk to what's her face in the hall here first before we head upstairs.
Really, officer?
Push on information regarding finances. A dialogue challenge, eh?
If you have something to ask, officer, I suggest you stop wasting my time.
I've already seen and heard how hot-tempered Madame Vanderbish can be. I should approach this with some sensitivity. So, understanding. My apologies, Madame. I was merely thinking about what Fleurette has done to your family. Pardon, I'm just considering all avenues. There's much for me to contemplate. So now I must try and break through her defenses, eh?
And this is how she repays me? I will not be happy until I see her sufficiently punished.
Is that good? Or, like, I don't... Like, it turned green. I'm going to assume that was good. I am grateful for your vigilance, but it is time for the proper authorities to decide her fate. I can understand your anger. Her actions broke your trust and have affected you all. Her punishment should be... All right, well, let's go with empathetic.
I am glad you have finally come to your senses and have seen her guilt.
I could not help noticing the art being sent to the auctioneers and the unpaid bills. Since the death of your husband, have you struggled to keep the house in the position it was? Or it must be difficult raising Mademoiselle Angeline and running the house alone.
It is challenging at times, I will admit. But I can assure you the Van den Bosch name is as strong and prevalent as it has always been. I have tried my best to provide for Angeline, although sometimes she may not see it that way. She is not to know about what we have discussed. It is my burden to carry.
You are accepting the hand you have been dealt and raising a fine young mademoiselle. That is all that can be asked of you.
And you have done nothing but bother my staff and my family. I cannot stand here any longer and listen to this second-rate officer speaking such drivel.
Madame Van der Bosch offers me the smallest slither of emotion, showing how she cares for her daughter before she makes haste for the door. Is it out of embarrassment, or perhaps there is something she is still trying to hide? I think it's perhaps time I continue my investigation elsewhere. Broke down Cassandra's defense and obtained some new evidence. In this case, it seems like you really hit a nerve with Cassandra. But I didn't get any actual new evidence, though. Because, I mean, all of these are still exactly the same, so... Wonder if Mademoiselle Angeline noticed Madame's abrupt departure. I suppose this is one such occasion when which I must literally get my hands dirty. Here's the bracelet. It was carefully concealed inside a rectangular metal tin. I mean, that and the fall... Oh, I can't link that. Angeline stashed her keepsake in the chimney, which would link
I must
the
take a
fallen
different
soot, but
approach if I
apparently
am
not. I mean, I guess it would connect with Angeline reached into the
order
chimney.
and method. I cannot see the logic in this.
No, neither can I, but I mean, it's gotta be this thing that I'm fucking connecting, right?
Come, my little gray cells.
I mean, I am thinking logically, but you're just not fucking. Like, I mean, why can't I connect the memento tin to the fucking missing whatever? There's nothing else was taken. Rectangular dust traces, you know? Like, technically that would link, but I mean, that doesn't really. I mean, maybe it can go through stuff. I mean, because I mean, she stashed it and then made it look like a
Magnifique.
robbery. Okay. Well, at least now we know it can go through stuff. You have made 25 deductions. Wow. Stage a burglary and let it go so far is totally unacceptable. I cannot believe I allowed Mademoiselle Angeline to deceive me for so long, hiding the bracelet inside the chimney and staging a burglary, all part of her calculated and devious plan. I should bring this investigation to an end. Enough of my time has already been wasted, but I will not be satisfied until I know why. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious why. She probably didn't want her mother to sell it.
The longer you're here, the further.
Yeah. Would you say that your maman is happy with young Florette's
Maman
work?
is never happy with anything these days. Also, Florette does have a habit of not doing things exactly how Maman wants them done.
And how does she react when she sees Florette not doing things the correct way?
Maman has the temperament of a kicked cat. Florette has often been on the wrong side of it.
That is how she responded today?
She was shouting at her, and when Florette would not admit she took the bracelet, Maman really lost her temper. I have not seen her that angry before.
You have been of great help to my investigation, mademoiselle. I will do everything I can to find the culprit and return your bracelet.
But I don't get to accuse her? It's weird. Cassandra became aggressive with Florette, and Cassandra had previously mistreated her. That
The
makes
pieces of the
sense.
puzzle are finally.
All signs are pointing to Florette being treated rather harshly by Madame. Would Madame escalate such mistreatment? Well, I mean, is mistreated and scapegoated.
What a revelation!
Her incarceration appears to be the latest in a series of abuses by Madame. What I do doubt is the behavior of Madame van der Bosch. What if what I have heard is true, her treatment towards Florette is disgraceful? Alright, well, let's go and talk to Florette, I guess. Because we've completed all of our investigation things that are there. Still wish for a speed up button, but you know, whatever. I'll admit at the very least he is at least walking faster than the ABC murders Poirot. Not by much,
Anything to show you I didn't do it. And Madame, I need this job, monsieur.
This is not the first time Madame van der Bosch has taken her anger out on you, is it?
She never used to be such a witch. When the Viscount was alive, she was much nicer. He was the head of the house, he gave the orders, and he treated us right. I would have gone long ago, monsieur, but my family can't afford for me to be picky about my employment.
I was not aware you were supporting your family, and at such a young age.
Papa lost his job at the factory just before he left for good, so Maman had to work even more. I was old enough, so I went to work. When I joined the Van den Bosch house, the Viscount was very kind. I didn't think he would care, but he wanted to help. He gave me some extra in my first pay pack, enough to keep the landlord from kicking Maman out at least. No one had ever been that nice before. I didn't know what to say, but all he wanted me to do was work hard for her. He even let me to go home and visit Maman and my brothers at Christmas, with a food parcel from the kitchen. Maman said she had never seen so much food. It's always been hard for her. Even before he left for good, Papa wasn't around much, and even when he was, we both wished he wasn't. My brothers were too young to remember what he was like, I hope. When I walked in Maman's house, everything seemed so much smaller. I must have got too used to the size of this house. I swear, you could fit our house in just this lounge. We didn't have much, but we didn't want for much. It was simple and it was home.
The valuables in the house do not determine the love it shares.
Someone should tell Madame that. Not that she'd listen anyways.
I will uncover the truth of what happened today, mademoiselle. That, I promise you.
The Viscount's kind nature shines through again. His treatment of the staff is quite a contrast from that of Madame's. From the way this young mademoiselle speaks of her family, I cannot believe she would risk her employment at the house and put them into an even worse position.
Merci. I shall take everything you have told me into consideration.
I mean, the only other people that we have to talk to now, I guess, are Elizabeth and Bitchface there, assuming that she actually went outside. Oh, well, we can talk to Elizabeth. So.
Certainly, officer.
I am ready to address the house. I believe it is time the truth behind the missing bracelet was revealed. Okay, well, before we do
Merci.
that, I want to see, because the lady did come out here. But is she actually out here? Because she just kind of pieced out. No, she's not. Alright, well.
Certainly, officer. You have found the culprit and the bracelet.
Sure enough.
Everything will be revealed in good time. Would you be so kind as to gather everyone in the lounge?
Of course.
Merci, Mademoiselle Elizabeth, for gathering everyone. Will Madame Van den Bosch be joining us shortly?
She stormed past me not long ago, and I have not seen her return.
Very well. Under usual circumstances, I would wait. But I think we have spent enough time on this matter, n'est-ce pas? We shall have to... This morning started like any other. My usual ordinary patrol, until I was approached by Mademoiselle Elizabeth about a suspected burglary and a missing bracelet.
A crime I've been falsely blamed for.
That I shall come to. I began my investigation outside, but it was not long before I realized there were no signs of an intruder, so I turned my focus to those in the house. You. Florette, your time here at the house has not always been the easiest for you, shall we say?
I do what Madame tells me.
And to the highest standard, I presume.
Madame's standards are very high. I do my best.
And you would at least expect fair treatment for the work, not to be spoken to in such a cruel and vicious way.
Monsieur?
I refer to how poorly Madame Van den Bosch treats you. You are at her beck and call, and she does nothing but belittle you.
That is Maman you're talking about. Just wait until...
It is nothing but the truth I speak, mademoiselle. All the while, mademoiselle stands by and does not even notice such cruelty. That must have angered you. Perhaps you thought it was time they deserved some retribution.
Stop trying to put words in her mouth.
I am merely giving her a voice, one that has been silenced for so long.
Maybe I do think she deserves it. She's had the world handed to her on a plate, and the likes of me get nothing.
A motive begins to rear its head.
You're just trying to get me to admit to something. Well, I've done nothing.
Allow me to finish. I am sure you will want to hear what follows. Let us return to this morning.
You were tasked with fetching breakfast from the town for the house. As well as fetching breakfast, you took another task on, which ended up delaying you further.
I was only trying to help Lizzie.
You must have known how Madame would have reacted to your late return, especially with her prior treatment of you.
She's angry at whatever I do.
But nonetheless, you were willing to help a colleague, a friend, knowing what the repercussions could be. And that show of loyalty to your friend has been the thing that proved your innocence.
Monsieur?
Because of such willingness to help, you were delayed in town, meaning you had no viable way of taking the bracelet from Mademoiselle Angeline's room. There was simply no opportunity.
I told you! Maybe now Madame will believe me.
It is evidence not even she can ignore. Which then leads us to Mademoiselle Elisabeth. Mademoiselle Elisabeth, you have been with the Van den Bosch family for quite some time now, correct?
That is correct.
You have grown close with both ladies of the house and your fellow members of the house staff, would you say?
Of course. And I certainly hope they feel the same.
And yet there are still secrets that are kept from them, but there are still private matters they are not aware of. I mean, that's basically the same thing.
You yourself told me Madame Van den Bosch would not stand for it, and you would both be out of a job.
Elizabeth? What is he talking about?
A love that is reminiscent of Romeo and Juliet, one that must remain hidden from the world from fear of expulsion.
If you don't stop, I will tell Maman. You can't speak to her like that.
It may be a tone you do not like, but it is no worse than your maman's ruling that forced them into secrecy to begin with.
I'm sorry. This isn't how I wanted you to find out. We couldn't risk Madame finding out. I don't know what we would do without this house.
What are you talking about, Elizabeth?
Luke and I, we're in love.
Luke? The gardener? But why wouldn't you tell me?
For fear of Madame and her rule, and if neither of you had employment, there would be no way to pay for a wedding, perhaps.
It was never our plan to go behind yours or Madame's back. You must believe me.
You two are to wed?
Yes. Well, no. Not today, as Officer Poirot suspects. Please, it's not what you think.
It is not always what one thinks, or how something may appear, rather where the evidence points. And that is to Mademoiselle Angeline.
You can't believe I would hide my own bracelet.
It is the only explanation that remains, but perhaps Florette would be more satisfied hearing the truth from you. I think it's time for the truth be told. I mean, yeah, let's fuck it.
I have nothing to say.
You would rather allow a faithful member of your staff to take the blame for your juvenile and adolescent actions. You acted out of fear. It is nothing we have not all done before.
How dare you speak to me like that? You have no idea what you are talking about.
I know that losing a father at such a young age must be horrific and terrifying. Perhaps I don't, but your maman does. She is someone you could confide in.
You can't actually believe I would hide my own jewelry.
If you didn't, explain to me how your memento tin with the bracelet inside came to be lodged inside the chimney of your bedroom fireplace.
You have no proof I put it there.
Besides you being the only one in the room alone, even after finding the bracelet, I still did not know why you had done it. Until I contemplated why Madame was selling so many heirlooms and art.
You had no right to snoop through our house in the first place.
When it is part of my investigation, I have every right, mademoiselle. The unpaid bills and final notice from the telephone company.
Maman can do what she wants with her art. That means nothing.
But when there was no more art to sell, what then? You could not risk her taking your father's bracelet and selling it. So, you staged a burglary pretending it had been taken, preventing her from selling it. Then you stood back as the innocent Florette paid the price.
She didn't think about me at all. She was going to take my bracelet and sell it off. It would have just ended up on some old wrinkly wrist. I didn't think Maman would blame her. I didn't think she would do anything.
But she did. And somehow that evidently didn't cross your mind. When Madame returns, you shall have it all to explain.
Maman can't know what I have done. She will be furious.
But Mademoiselle Florette will be proved innocent. And that is what is important. No crime has been committed, so I see no reason why this should continue any longer. It is time you considered the consequences of your actions. And now, you must face them head on.
Maman, You're home.
Of course I am. And I've brought someone that will bring some order to this chaos.
Major Felix Hagen. He may hold the rank of major in the British Army, but I question his authority here at all. Police matters, I am the authority. This is my investigation. I will not have Madame dictating the results any longer.
Major, I can assure you I have the situation under control.
From what I have heard, you are far from it.
The missing bracelet has been found, and the guilty party has been identified.
I am well aware that the maidservant was behind it all. And yet I see her standing as free and innocent as you and me.
I am sure Madame van den Bosch has informed you of her suspicions, but I'm afraid it was merely speculation.
Excuse me?
After conducting a full investigation, the evidence and facts led me to deduce...
Mademoiselle Florette could not have taken it, as she was in town most of this morning, including the time the bracelet was taken. Or just throw Angeline directly under the bus, but...
I certainly hope you are not accusing my daughter.
I didn't accuse her, though.
I'm sorry, Maman. He's right. Florette is innocent. I just wanted to show you.
Shh, girl. I will not have you guilted into taking the blame for that sticky-fingered girl.
Refuses to acknowledge even a fraction of what has really taken place. I shall not let this continue any longer. Perhaps it would benefit you to hear, Mademoiselle. Any guilt your daughter feels should be only from her actions today.
Officer Poirot, a word. Madame van den Bosch was forced to make her way to inform me, alone, I might add, of the goings-on at the house today.
Major, with all due respect, she was impeding the investigation.
This may be how some officers act in the city, but here we show respect to our citizens. You are an officer of the law and should act as such. Insubordination like this will not be tolerated.
As the ranking officer, I have conducted my investigation and...
Ranking officer? Ha! You are an auxiliary officer. You have little authority over anyone, let alone a major. You would be wise to remember who is close friends with your commanding officer. After what I have heard of your past in the city, I'm sure he would look upon today's events as another failure at the hands of Officer Poirot.
Sir, this has become I must select my battles more tactfully. I can only hope the captain, the station, will see things with some
Oui,
sense.
Major.
Now I suggest you do your duty and escort the maidservant to the station where she can be formally charged and a sufficient punishment handed out.
Right away. I'm sorry, mademoiselle. This is not the outcome I expected.
Maman was right. We'll always pay the price for the upper class's actions.
We will do everything we can to clear your name.
What can you do now? Madame said I'm guilty of a crime and I'll be punished. That's that.
A crime that was never committed. Once the truth is explained, this wrong shall be set right.
Angeline did not intend for you to be arrested. Surely you know her better than that.
I should have known better than to expect anything else. Justice and fairness don't reach the likes of me.
This young lady has already faced so much mistreatment at the hands of Madame van den Bosch. I shall not allow her punishment to continue.
What you saw today was not justice. In the eyes of the law, you are innocent and have been harshly treated and wrongly accused. No one will be going to jail.
But that doesn't help my employment, does it?
That I cannot save. But your freedom, I shall make sure of that.
I feel like an imposter dressed in police clothing. I was brought here today as a representative of the law, and any shred of authority I had was dashed at the hands of the major. I refuse to allow justice to waver and for it to become nothing more than a hand for those that wish to play it as and when they choose. It's not the first time I have seen the law bent to fit one's purpose, but it will certainly be the last time I fail to stop it.